Another favorite PC game hitting its 20th anniversary. It's happening all too often these days. But I'll happily take the excuse to reminisce over Unreal Tournament 2004. Published by Atari's zombified corporate corpse, and developed by Digital Extremes and Epic Games for PCs running Windows and Linux, with a macOS port arriving 2 weeks later. Reload, rev up, and ride out in the highly anticipated follow-up to Unreal Tournament 2003. Yeah, I didn't forget about that happening. Far from it. I vividly recall seeing it on store shelves in late 2002 and being psyched. The original UT, now retroactively dubbed UT99, was still in frequent rotation among me and my friends, our go-to FPS fragfest ever since we got a hold of it. And while I had some reservations after playing the very popular UT 2003 demo, I was more than willing to give the full version a fighting chance. And, well...
Blue team on offense! Blue fumbled! Red team on offense!
Things immediately felt mixed. Don't get me wrong, I certainly didn't hate it, and played it plenty. There was lots to like for an early 2000s arena shooter. But as a sequel to UT99, 2003 was a tad lacking compared to its forerunner. Beginning with the included maps, or lack thereof, of which there was 37, not including tutorials, split across all game types, which, by the way, no longer includes Assault. And the classic-facing worlds capture the flag map, and its place is an imposter, with awkward jump pad and pit layouts, and far too much geometry getting in the way of the action. And oh my god, where's the sniper rifle? There's no sniper rifle? Nope. UT 2003 replaced it with the Lightning Gun, a scoped energy weapon with similar sniping functionality, but one that fires ludicrously slowly at 1.64 seconds between shots. According to Cliff Bleszinski's excellent memoir, Control Freak, this ill-advised sniper rifle replacement wasn't his or Epic's choice, but rather a decision by UT 2003 co-developers Digital Extremes, with a number of UT 2003's issues partially stemming from DE unfortunately falling behind on development work. But all I knew back then was the Lightning Gun sucked. And that alone was enough to sour me on UT 2003 as a snobby 16-year-old. As fun as it was to nail an explosive kill using lightning, the gun's slow firing rate and overall lack of oomph shooting beams of electricity in lieu of high-caliber lead, I just thought it was disappointing. Really, the combat in general felt slightly off, with its chunky guns taking up screen real estate, plus player movement that somehow made me feel less directly connected to everything. It was hard to describe, but I felt it in my soul. There was also the whole sports vibe, football in particular, from the year and the title implying annual Madden-like releases, to the bombing run mode where teams compete to toss a ball through the opposing team's goal, to the downright NFL-like theme that plays on startup. Combine these aspects with the overall lack of maps, mutators, and mods on launch, and that was that. Man, the moment I got my hands on 2004, I dropped 2003 and never went back. Seriously, I hadn't played it again until making this video. And you know what? It's a lot better than I remembered. All the important base DNA for a UT sequel is there. The addition of things like double jumping and adrenaline up the intensity. The map design is a bit disjointed but feels unique, and I think it'd be an FPS cult classic if it existed in a vacuum. But the fact is, its predecessor and successor brightly outshine it on every level, leaving it as a stopgap footnote in the series that's easy to overlook, and was soon supplanted outright. And that brings us back to UT 2004, first dropping on March 16th, 2004, and acting as Epic's formal apology for 2003. It kept all the solid new ideas and upgrades, thoughtfully tweaked the parts that fell short, and more than doubled the content while bringing back a bunch of original UT stuff that fans craved. things like Assault Mode, worthy updates to classics like Facing Worlds and Deck 16, far more maps, mutators, and characters, and of course, the all-important sniper rifle. Along with new features we didn't know we wanted, but soon couldn't live without, namely the new mode titled Onslaught. Oh, we'll get to you, Onslaught Mode, you beautiful bombastic bastard. But yeah, UT 2004 was more than a simple upgrade or an expansion, it was a straight-up replacement for 2003. Heck, I don't even recall seeing them on store shelves together side by side. On that note, by the time 2004 rolled around, big boxes had mostly gone away for PC games, so this particular Sam's Club release I have is a real rarity. Practically everyone got these smaller boxes instead, which packed the same contents anyway, so it was a win for retailer shelf space, less so for collectors, but what you gonna do? And inside said boxes, the first thing you'd find is this $10 mail-in rebate voucher, acting as a discount for owners or victims of UT 2003. All you had to do was pack this with the purchase receipt, tear off the cover from the manual for 2003, and send it to Atari for that sweet, sweet Hamilton. And certain retailers took this further, straight up offering UT 2004 for free under certain conditions, as laid out in this ad from Electronics Boutique. Anyway, also included are these shiny Atari stickers, because Infogrames was thrilled with their new name. And then there's the instruction manual, a fantastic 60-page full-color booklet covering all the new and returning features and providing unnecessarily detailed descriptions of every single weapon, pickup, item, and more. No one asked for or needed all this juicy lore for such a straightforward, frenetic shooting game, but I absolutely love that it's here. I also love that they refer to the in-game chat console as text messaging, because 2004 was a hell of a drug. Finally, you get the game itself in a cardboard disc sleeve, spread across 6 CD-ROMs, 5 to install and 1 to play. Unless you opted for the DVD-ROM edition, of course, which came in a plastic keep case with 2 DVDs, 1 data disc for the game and the other with DVD video with modding tutorials and behind-the-scenes stuff. Oh, and there was also this ultra-shiny DVD special edition, an uncommon bundle packaged in an aluminum outer sleeve that itself encases a thick inner collector's box. This comes complete with the DVDs, of course, but also this behind-the-head Logitech headset. Perfect for the new in-game voice chat, though it has, seen better days. It's rapidly aging and has darn near fallen apart since the mid-2000s, but hey, who hasn't? So, the 2004 Tournament of Unreal begins with a real-time 3D intro, sucking off the game's technology partner / sponsor, NVIDIA. The way it's meant to be played, yeah, I recall resenting that quote at the time, still holding a grudge against NVIDIA for gobbling up 3D effects. My tent was pitched in Camp ATI with a 128MB Radeon 9800 AGP card as my GPU of choice back then. Whatever your hardware though, UT2K4 ran on a fresh revision of Unreal Engine 2, referred to as version 2.5. And it was well optimized enough that with the right settings, you could play it on anything from a Windows 98 Pentium 3 laptop to the kind of monster Windows XP machine I could only dream of. Well, back then anyway. As the manual implies, you couldn't go wrong with an Alienware Area 51. A proper beefcake of a gaming rig that put my meager little AMD Duron build to shame in 04. And if you did have such a system to run it on,
Holy shit.
you gotta love an options menu that doubles as your hype man. Speaking of hype, check out that new rendition of the classic UT theme. It's pretty good. And from here, you're free to choose from a selection of pre-made characters, some returning from UT99, but most hailing from new in-universe factions. You've got the humans, the Scar, the robots, the Egyptians, the Predators, the spiky BDSM crew, the roided out swole bros, all geared up for war. Then it's onto the main menu and your selection of single-player campaign, online multiplayer, and instant action for offline skirmishes against bots. There also used to be this awesome community menu with developer updates, mod files, and community maps to download under Ownage, an extension of Cliffy B's Ownage website. I miss being able to grab stuff in-game here, but thankfully the community map packs and bonuses are all archived. And a bunch was included in the somewhat oddly titled Editor's Choice Edition, an expanded release from late 2004. Which editor? All of them, I guess. Yeah, print media editor awards were still a huge deal then, and maybe it received more of those than Game of the Year nods. 04 was legendarily stacked with FPS greatness after all, so it may not be the Game of the Year edition, but it's the same concept, and is what I'm showing from here onward. And what we've got to show is a lot. Check out all these game types. There's so many returning favorites and some new things to explore. And there's vehicle CTF on top of this if you install supported maps. Whatever you choose, the map selection is downright excellent. Doubly so coming from the relative dearth of them in 2003. The expected adjustments are here as well, with even more advanced optional options opening up by clicking a checkbox down below. And of course, bot skill level can be chosen alongside quantity, now up to a whopping 32 of them. They can also be customized at a more granular level if you're into that sort of thing. And then finally, the mutators on offer are solid as well, with plenty of returning originals, lots of new ones to play with, along with two particular favorites, sniper rifles and UT Classic. The former replacing all lightning guns with snipers, and the latter rebalancing the guns and actions to feel closer to UT-99. But even choosing nothing though, this is just good stuff.
Play.
It feels like home. Almost as much as OG UT, honestly. For as much as Unreal Tournament 99 ruled my early teenage years, UT 2004 dominated the latter stretch of adolescence. And what an ideal age to have a game with as much over-the-top cartoonishly violent madness as this. But especially one that ended up as such a proper follow-up to an all-time classic like UT, while still feeling thoroughly unique in its identity. For one thing, the kinesthetic reality is now spot on. That slight disconnected feel I got with 2003 is gone. I know some lamented the nerfing of boost dodging and fast weapon switching, but there's a mutator to get those back. For me though, vanilla UT 2004 feels more balanced and considered in how it plays compared to 2003. From map geometry to the weapon models, those rough edges have been sanded down or reimagined entirely, to the point where you need zero explanation to play. Any newbie can jump in and enjoy just fine. Though that didn't stop Prima from over-explaining things in their official strategy guide, a nearly 400-page tome that only takes this much of the book to explain all the gameplay. The entire remaining 3/4 of the thing is dedicated to exhaustively detailing every single map in the game. One of the most debatably useful guides I've ever seen. But yeah, combat is intuitive and gratifying across the board, with tighter reloads, better impact results, tweaked sound effects, and overall more satisfying gun feel. Even the lightning gun returns as a faster, snappier version of itself. And that classic sniper rifle, yeah, it's just what the doctor ordered. Not 100% the same as UT-99, insta-kill headshots aren't so commonplace, but it's still far more personally satisfying to use than the electric long gun ever was. And I approve of what takes the place of the old impact hammer, the shield gun, as it not only acts as a close-up melee attack, but a defense against incoming fire. A limited one, but it's there, and I use it more often than I did the hammer. And yes, jump boosting is still accomplished by firing downward in mid-air, something I neglected to mention the impact hammer could do in UT-99. As for your starting hit-scan weapon, I truly miss the Enforcer pistols for their precision, but the new assault rifles can be dual-wielded, and I love the built-in grenade launcher. It is nuts how often that comes in handy during brief encounters with someone attacking head-on. And I'm glad at least one weapon does this, considering the rocket launcher no longer lobs grenade-like rounds as its alt-fire. Instead, the launcher is a rotating triple-barreled brute, chambering up to 3 rockets at a time, shooting in a spiral pattern or a straight line, depending on what's held down. And the minigun was basically flip-flopped, with primary fire absolutely shredding those on the unfortunate receiving end, and alt-fire shooting slower, but more accurately. There are, of course, multiple mutators like Unreal Tournament 2341 here that bring back OG weapons and behavior, including those sublime enforcers, but I've always been satisfied with UT 2004's loadout enough to be happy even unchanged. The main weapon not returning is the Ripper with its bouncy explosive saw blades, but it's fine. If there was one gun to drop, that was it. Defensive pickups make a return in the form of different glowing shields providing armor, and relative to UT99, the number of collectible power-ups has been reduced from 4 to 1, with only the double damage amplifier remaining. Instead, UT 2003 introduced Adrenaline, a feature that 2004 kept around. It can be disabled if you please, though personally I've always enjoyed this. It adds another engaging strategic layer to the ongoing fight, no matter how it's going, moment to moment. Acquire 100 adrenaline points through capsules or accomplishments, and entering a 4-direction combo activates a temporary power-up. Speed, increasing your movement velocity and jump height. Booster, generating health up to 199% and shields back to 150. Berserk, cranking up overall firing rate and the shield gun's knockback effect. And Invisible, which is mostly what it sounds like, although you're more translucent with a slight outline. And then using the extra combos mutator, you also get pint-sized and camouflaged, shrinking you down to half the size or displaying a piece of level geometry around the player. Pure silliness, but the base 4 abilities are legit. And when that soundtrack drops in just the right way, oh, it's good. A fitting mix of orchestral and electronica with bits of industrial and breakbeat tossed in. It's no drum and bass track or music masterpiece like UT99 had, but still. Props to Starsky Partridge and Will Nevins for their contributions, along with a big chunk of it by Kevin Riepel, who went on to compose the excellent Gears of War score and much more since. But yeah, all these aspects combine to form UT 2004's core, which is rock hard and full of abs, like the majority of its characters. It's especially strong in the classic modes of Deathmatch, Last Man Standing, and each capture the flag flavor, with map design feeling familiar but larger and more sprawling, especially notable on returning UT favorites. The design and layout for old maps may be roughly the same, but they're scaled up and less claustrophobic, allowing for far more fragging room. This makes the holdover of UT 2003's double jumping mechanic a welcome one for navigation, or even quad jumping when that's enabled through a mutator. And the presentation for each map is wildly varied, with art styles, themes, and layouts running the gamut in terms of visual diversification. One might even call it scatterbrained, a muddled up mess of maps clearly created by different folks with contrasting design philosophies, but I don't know, somehow it works. Going from map to map is like teleporting across a galaxy from one bizarre future fantasy civilization to the next. The theme of this virtual existence is chaos after all, so why not a vibrant Technicolor universe of graphical weirdness? Especially considering how much of a muted grayish-brown palette we ended up with a few years later, but let's not dive into that here. UT 2004's wondrous visual chaos extends to the physics as well, now implementing the Karma physics engine. So every death results in a floppy display of slapstick comedy, with character models delightfully getting tossed across the map like a limp bag of bullet-riddled potatoes. There's also the amusing tendency for corpses to lose their heads and limbs and ending up as nothing but a torso, possibly while on fire. Or if their flesh is eviscerated, turning into a skeleton. I love it when games turn you into a skeleton. Sure, it's not quite the same visceral feeling I got with UT99's low-res gore sprites and bouncing heads flying around, but what's here handily gets the job done, and a flak cannon jib explosion is still a thing of beauty. Previously, I've discussed a feeling I call high-intensity zen, that heightened flow state where, amidst the carnage, your reflexes increase and your heart rate stays elevated without being distracting, keeping you in the zone as your mind forgets the existence of time. And UT2K4 easily brings about that counterintuitive tranquility, most notably on the classic UT game types. As for the others, well, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Domination, for example, is replaced with double domination, where instead of an overall score adding up the longer multiple capture points are claimed, only a couple of capture points require claiming, and teams need to hold both simultaneously for a set amount of time. Meaning there's the constant threat of last-second turnovers, and matches can frustratingly wear out their welcome before anyone actually scores. I sure wish old-school domination was still an option. Don't take that quote out of context. Anyway, Mutant is another mode I find not tremendously enjoyable. The first player to frag another becomes the Mutant, getting all adrenaline skills at once, including invisibility, and it's up to everyone else to kill the Mutant, asymmetric style. Whoever does so becomes the Mutant themselves until they're killed, and this continues on till someone gains the most Mutant points. I don't know, at least with bots, I just don't find it fun hunting down a superpowered ghost while not being able to shoot anyone else. Invasion is a little more my style, at least on its face. Taking place on deathmatch maps, it's your classic horde survival mode, where you're attacked by increasingly deadly waves of monsters from the original Unreal. And that's that. Try to survive as long as you can and enjoy those nostalgic Unreal beasties from 1998. Next up is Bombing Run, the sports mode from 2003 that I actually rather enjoy. There's something about a straightforward get the ball in the goal game that just works in multiple genres due to its simplicity and universal understanding. Plus, when playing offense means blasting a dude with plasma rifles and miniguns, I mean, it's hard not to have a good time with that. And the fact you can jump through the goal holding the bomb ball and explode yourself for extra points, just wonderful. I love the theme of deadly future game shows and fiction, and that's the vibe here. I also want to mention Assault, since it was removed from 2003 and added back in 2004 at the behest of OG UT fans. While the famous Pulge bot tech is improved here, it still really benefits from playing with real players instead of bots, since there's so much in the way of objective-based strategy. But I mainly wanted to bring it up because the Mothership map is nuts, and understandably received prime screenshot placement on the box and much of the marketing. This map has players starting off in space, piloting ships outside a huge mothership, and taking out both defense turrets and each other in a zero-G dogfight. I don't think there's anything else like this in the UT series, and it's kind of awesome, if only a brief part of an otherwise average Assault map, with most of it taking place on foot inside of the spacecraft itself. Then finally we have Onslaught. By far the most advertised new mode in UT 2004, and it's clear why. Onslaught is the most epic in scope thing Epic had done to that point. It's a large-scale war game taking place in wide-open maps with team bases in opposing corners aiming to blow up each other's power core. Up to 32 players at once are provided weapons, ammunition, and for the first time, vehicles. Something the marketing latched onto and ran with. Anyone remember these vehicle adverts for the game? These new car-style magazine ads were some of the first things I saw about UT 2004 back in the day. Anyway, Onslaught. Each team is tasked with taking control of power nodes, either by showing up to claim free nodes and then blasting them with link guns to speed up the process, or shooting down enemy nodes and seizing them by force. This connects power links between nodes, stringing along the links from your base to the enemies, which finally allows their power core to be attacked and destroyed. In a sense, it's an Unreal Tournament take on Conquest mode from Battlefield, with a little Star Wars Battlefront, or Tribes, or PlanetSide, or, there were multiple games doing open-ended combat by 2004, but back then I hadn't played any of them, other than some demos from PC Gamer discs. So Onslaught was my proper introduction to the world of first-person shooting in wide-open maps, with high player counts, vehicles to hop into, and control points to claim. And yet, for as many similar things came and went in the last 20 years, UT 2004's Onslaught mode still stands out to me. For one thing, the vehicles. Sure, other games let you run over dudes, but who else outfit their cars with giant retractable blades while providing words of devilish encouragement like,
Vehicular manslaughter. Hit and run. Rare kill.
and the tastiest type of kill.
Pancake.
Its overt gore, lighthearted attitude, and enjoyably wonky physics made it a real joy squashing siblings, friends, and strangers. It also featured some delectable new weaponry, much of it attached to trucks, tanks, turrets, aircraft, and so on, but also a few on foot, like the grenade launcher and mine layer, each of which act as fine additions to maps filled with armored vehicles driving all over the place. And you gotta love mines that look like spiders, can be herded around, and chase dudes down to blow them up. Then there's the Avril, not to be confused with Canadian singer-songwriters, but an anti-vehicle rocket launcher. It locks onto vehicles and tracks them down with a deadly guided explosive with gleeful splash-damagey results. It's great stuff. Then a bit more rarely provided are the target and ion painters on certain maps, allowing you to call in open-air strikes from either a bomber craft or from the unseen ion cannon satellite and wreak complete havoc from orbit. I've also gotta mention the single-player campaign. It's interesting. Not only is it different to UT99's campaign, but also UT 2003. That one took place 11 years after the first tournament, and it played practically the same as UT's campaign, offering a big string of matches to win and a ladder to climb, aiming to earn the titular Tournament of Unreality. But it also had these fun in-engine cutscenes with campy voice-acted dialogue and ostentatious characters like a big dumb stage play with a side of pro wrestling. Enjoyably silly and fun. In UT 2004, though, the campaign gets rid of those and focuses on wagering and team management. So you play the ladder of maps and modes as before, but instead of simply moving on, you earn currency for winning matches, place bets on certain skirmishes, and also hire, fire, and heal bot-controlled team members. An interesting idea, to be sure, and I like parts of it, but I'm also really annoyed by how garbage most of the bots end up being. There is zero reason to go with anything other than the very best bots, and therefore the most expensive, making it so there's far fewer reasonable possibilities for economic and team strategy than it first appears. And naturally, every offline game type is playable online. Or at least it was for the longest time, with the master server remaining online until Epic randomly decided to shut it down in 2023. Thankfully, though, the community has come through with alternatives like OpenSpy. Just grab this line of text from ut2004serverlist.com, copy and paste it in-game as a console command, and that's that. Multiplayer is back online. Though not nearly as active as it was even just before Epic nuked the main server. Anyway, it's thankfully still an option, and it's by far the best way to play certain tactics-focused game modes like Assault and Onslaught, and doubly so for custom modes through mods. And on that note, mods. Being that it is what it is, it once again came with a version of the Unreal Editor alongside the game, encouraging healthy modification from day one. Things like custom mutators, maps, and skins were practically endless, and there are huge numbers of them still around on legacy mod sites with every pop culture character imaginable. Yeah, I'ma tell my kids this was Fortnite. Of course, it's the more ambitious, game-changing mods and total conversions that really stood out, several of which were included in the Editor's Choice Edition, but many more became staples online. Like Alien Swarm, Frag Ops, Air Buccaneers, Ballistic Weapons, Chaos UT2, Killing Floor, and Red Orchestra. And many of these UT 2004 mods led to the developers spinning off their creations into standalone games later on. Y'all heard of Rocket League? Well, the developer's lineage traces back 2 decades ago when Psyonix founder Dave Hagewood created a UT 2003 vehicle mod that impressed folks at Epic enough that they brought him on to help create what became Onslaught and UT 2004. And the resulting vehicle code was used by the UT community to create more mods, like Carball, developed by Cliff Earle. And yeah, despite the obvious similarities, this was not made by the Psyonix folks, though it was of course based on Onslaught vehicle code. Psyonix went their own way in 2008, releasing supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars on PSN using Unreal Engine 3, which of course led to its blockbuster sequel, Rocket League, on PC and console platforms. Speaking of consoles, it's surprising that UT 2004 never got a direct console port. Even UT99 had ports to Sega Dreamcast and PlayStation 2. The closest we got were the Unreal Championship games on Xbox, the first of which actually launched 6 days before UT 2003, being developed in tandem with it. But that was 2003. The far more successful UT 2004, nope, it remained a computer exclusive. As for Unreal Championship 2 a year later, it was largely its own thing, starting off with the expectation of becoming Unreal Tournament 2005, and featuring stuff like third-person perspective melee combat, exclusive game types, fatality-style finishing moves, unique player character traits, and so on. The next proper UT sequel wouldn't arrive until 2007, but that's another thing indeed. And that is it for Unreal Tournament 2004, a truly fantastic arena shooter back then, and still a solid game to return to today. Yeah, how has it aged after 2 decades? Maybe not quite as charmingly retro as UT99, but that's just personal preference. No matter how you slice it, UT 2004 is still completely refreshing compared to games today.
Vehicle destroyed.
The sheer amount of stuff you get is insane. Enough that even if you don't care for half of it, there's still plenty left over to love. And it's still straightforward to run on modern systems and patch it for improved widescreen support. It makes it very easy to recommend buying even 20 years later, and I'd happily suggest grabbing a digital copy on Steam or GOG if Epic Games hadn't suddenly delisted it and the entire UT franchise from all storefronts at the same time they killed the servers. It's downright baffling, but Epic's current stance on their FPS classics seems to be
Kill 'em all!
So until that changes, there are plenty of second-hand physical copies for very little cash, and I also hear archive.org is lovely this time of year. However you can, though, UT 2004 is still worth tracking down to enjoy 2 decades after its release, even if the company behind it seemingly doesn't want you to do so. If you enjoyed this retrospective, I've also covered UT99 and the original Unreal before, so check those out if you like, or stick around for new videos always in the works here on LGR. And thanks for watching.